Alright, y'all. The game this week is this book and a dress for the tiny human. Okay, my darlings, so this book is something I've wanted for years, and it is stupid expensive used online, and it's like a pamphlet. Do you see this, right? And it's usually like $200 online. It's crazy. So, the costumer, Another Dream Gone West, had a delightful video, and she mentioned it. And on an impulse, like, that's a cool one. What would that look like on a person? On impulse, I went on and checked the used bookstore, and they actually had a copy that was somewhat affordable. And since it is out of print, and I cannot think of anyone who would be harmed by a copy of this floating around online, I'm going to scan the thing, and there will be a link below to the scanning of the pamphlet that you do not need to pay $200 for. If it was actually being printed, if proceeds were going to people involved in the creation of it, I would not do that. If another printing comes around, I'll take it down. But until then, by all means, go and get your cool ideas for wasting less fabric in your projects. And I mean, really, it's a lady who was probably like in England being like, oh, look at this brief overview of fashions from all over the world. So yeah, I don't feel bad about it. Anyway, I was flipping through, and the tiny human needs a dress, and I want to see what this one looks like on a human being. Isn't it cool? Let's see. A Greek women's sleeveless dress from northern Epirus, made about 100 years ago. That's not that long. Comes from only 3 widths of narrow material, and yet has a beautiful, easy, graceful sweep. So I crunched the numbers on it, and assuming that this piece is 16 inches at the bottom and like 8 inches at the top, that's still only 80 inches down here, which is not enough easy, graceful sweep for my tiny human. So what I'm doing is cut out 4 16-inch rectangles, 60 inches long, because in flagrant defiance of the principles of this, I'm not doing selvage to selvage 16 inches wide. I'm doing selvage to selvage 60 and creating imaginary narrow widths of fabric. Anyway, I want to see what it looks like on a person, right? So I'm about to sit down and turn everything from a rectangle into very long triangles. Yeah? So I've got 2 16s, and then this I actually cut into 4 8s. Yeah? So these I'll just cut cattywampus, corner to corner, and these two I'm going to assume that's 8 because that looks like it's probably 4 out of 16. Right? And then you can find out along with me what it looks like on an actual human body. It'll be fun. Okay, so it turns out it's the Royal Ontario Museum that printed the book, and so it's Canadian, and so is the author. I saw Royal and assumed British. I don't know how Canadians feel about the Queen, but I was wrong about that. And she's been dead for like 20 years, so she's not publishing anything new. And this is coming together very quickly. I mean, 16 pieces is a completely bonkers number of pieces for a sleeveless dress. On the other hand, it's an incredibly efficient use of fabric, I think, because it's, 60 inches, my selvage to my selvage, so long ways. And then 4 of those pieces, 16 inches wide, 64. It's a more or less square of linen, 60 by 64, and we're getting a pretty dress out of it. So that's cool. And I'm sewing this together. You can see that crooked because I flat fill all the things. There was no mention of how this was done. Oh, that's the other thing. 100 years ago for the book was 1870, not 1920. So if you are attending an 1870 themed party, apparently this would be period correct, and a hell of a lot simpler than any of the usual 1870s thingamadoozies. And here we go, flat filling, because I am completely ridiculous. But hey, it'll be nice and smooth on the inside and the outside. That'll be nice. And I suspect that these vertical seams are going to be integral to the fall of the dress or whatever. So, I don't know. No idea, honestly. This is just me experimenting. Boop, boop, boop. And to show you how hard I'm experimenting here, let me show you a couple problems. Okay, so the geometry of it just defeated me utterly. See, this is the 8 inches wide, which is not wide enough for the top of a dress. It's just not. And so the various and sundry triangles were supposed to come up all the way to the top, right? They didn't. I don't know if I eyeballed the rectangles wrong or what, but they didn't. So if I find the other... Sorry, this is just like an endless shot of fabric chaos. Oh, here we go. So I put it up to the kidlet, and I'm like, you think this is wide enough? And she's like, yeah, I think that's wide enough. And since I was cutting across the top of it anyway, I decided to cut across the top of it and make for some shoulder slope. And so I'll sew those together in a little while, and then we'll worry about neck holes. And the other thing, let's see, oh, this is the inside of it. The other thing is this situation where the one triangle vanishes under the other triangle, and actually it's really pretty, but this one tries to sneak out from underneath of this one, and so I had to go back in and like stuff it under there and sew it from the outside. Definitely not proper sewing technique, I'm sure. So I figured I'd have some idea, like, this is how you should do this after I've done it 4 times, but no idea. So just know that this is the tricky part. Slow down for it. Just, yeah. Slow down for it, or maybe you are a much better sewist than me. This is very possible, and you'll have some idea. If you have some idea how to make triangles stay under, please put it in the comments. I'd love to read it. I want to learn. Alright. I'm going to finish up that seam and move on to the shoulders. Someone is, as always, super cooperative. But, look, with the keyhole neckline, like in the diagram, the full 8-inch width, it actually sits beautifully.
Hey, that tickles.
I'm sorry. Beautiful keyhole neckline, but she wants a V-neck. So, we are getting evidence of V-neck. And also, I had to plop it on her so I could say, hey, do you want the armholes here? And she would say, yes, right there. So, needs a wash and a hanging to get the wrinkles out. But not bad for the amount of fabric. And the vertical seam lines are very nice, aren't they? Mm. She wants the fabric built, which I think would even be period correct, but I haven't made it yet.